everybody. Welcome to Sonictalk, episode 833, I believe, on Wednesday, the 12th of February, 2025. We're 2 weeks out of NAMM, or is it 3 weeks now? Because I lost a week. I think maybe my music is a bit loud. I think that's what I was getting at there. So, I'm going to be talking to Yoad Nevo, who's our guest today, and we will actually be covering some other topics as well. But before I get into all of that, I'm just going to run you a little bit of a message about our Patreon, because I recommend you join it. It's 2025 and our Patreon keeps getting better thanks to our supporters. Thank you so much. There's ad-free versions of much of what we post on YouTube, Sonic Talk pre-show, Sonic Lab extra videos, the ever-expanding Sonicstate archives, including classics like the top 20 greatest samplers. There's Patreon Discord, a monthly hangout, the excellent members map, impulse responses from classic and unusual reverbs, and a growing collection of patches and samples in decent sampler format, including some great Moog Muse samples. In fact, the music you're listening to now by Paulie Bow was made using our sample sets, so why not consider supporting us and keep us doing what we do? Head over to patreon.com/Sonicstate. There we go, and that was music by Paulie Bow, of course. Thanks very much for that. Incidentally, we've just updated our decent sampler offerings. I did got a new version of the instrument that had input from Venus Theory, who does a load of stuff for decent sampler, and we're going to do a collab, I think. So watch out for that. That should improve things as well. So let's visit our guest, Mr. Yoad Nevo, who's there at Nevo Sound, where they do Atmos mixes, production, deep thinking on software concepts and whatnot, and plugins and all sorts of things. How are you, Yoad? You well?
Yeah, very well. Good to be back after a while.
Yeah, it feels like a little while. I suppose we had Christmas. I mean, I know you were available at a couple of the last ones, but we just couldn't make it all work out. And now I've got you all to myself. So in many ways, that's all for the better. So what's been going on? Have you presumably? I mean, I thought we'd start with a bit of NAMM action, just purely because I haven't spoken to you since then. Did you kind of catch any of the stuff that came out of there?
I did watch, I think, most of Sonicstate videos.
Oh, good grief.
Which, So, but it seems to have been so long since I forgot what it was all about.
It's funny that, isn't it? How I felt the same thing, but all of that stuff sort of coming in at once, and then suddenly you feel like, oh, there's no news anymore. But there's so much news and so many things out of it. I mean, I think it was. It's an interest. There was a lot of stuff there, but good. Congratulations for making it through most of those videos. That's more than I've done. Yeah, it feels like it was kind of an incremental across the board sort of thing, rather than one thing or a couple of things sticking out as super innovative or some. You know what I mean? That's what it felt to me. Maybe for you being there, it was different, but I wasn't kind of. I think my jaw stayed in place. Yes, I know what you mean. Way. I think, like, you're right. It sort of felt like the whole of it just sort of elevated.
Yeah, just more of the same.
More of the same, yeah. Which is inevitable. I mean, you can't have massive amounts of innovation. It goes in cycles, doesn't it? I mean, usually there's a sort of enabler, like, I think there was there are techniques in DSP that suddenly become everything kind of grows. And I'd imagine we're probably going to start seeing some benefits from AI and machine learning having being much more current, and as people find that there are tools and applications for it, that's going to elevate a load of stuff as well. I mean, assuming people can figure out the thing that they want it to do, because at the moment there seems to be a sort of without going too far down the AI discussion, it's most of what seems to be generated by this stuff in terms of the generative function is considered to be sort of slop, and it's just like, well, it doesn't really float my boat or kind of connect. So it's a question of finding the right application for those, and I'm sure you're probably best placed to that yourself.
Yes, and also I think that brands are trying to find their way, and kind of online service seems to be the right platform for the way things are at the moment. And I don't think that, except for neural DSP, which have been going for quite a few years now with that technology, kind of neural network technology in hardware format, I don't think that are too many other players in that. But I think, I suspect that in the next couple of years, there'll be loads of stuff.
I think so too. Well, one thing that was interesting, I mean, you're talking about the neural DSP. I mean, with the new Snapdragon, are they 4? I can't remember what the Snapdragon processors, because we talked to, oh gosh, I can't remember his name now. God, that's terrible. I've got show brain. Pete Brown. And we looked at and we talked and we saw some of the real-time stuff, and those new processors, which are system on a chip, which obviously Apple have had for a while, are now available for Windows machines, and they've got neural processing as well for sort of real-time stuff. So it does seem that's probably going to increment more people, because if you've got both main OS platforms now capable of supporting the same technology, that's bound to sort of maybe light a bit of a fire under developers. Go, well, it's worth doing because it's not just a single, it's not just platform agnostic,
Yeah, so more plugins rather than standalone online HTML-based services, and more tools.
Oh yeah, that's an
for
interesting
us to make our lives easier before it completely takes over our existence in its entirety.
Well, let's hope not. Synth Samurai, hey, nice to see you there in the chat. Nice to see you. I don't think I saw you at NAMM. I'm not sure if Synth Samurai was at NAMM, or if he was, our paths didn't cross, which seems unconscionable somehow. Maybe he wasn't there. Okay, well, I mean, we've got a few things. I suppose I was going to start with, I suppose sticking with the NAMM thing, was there anything that really stuck out for you that you do remember? I know you've already said I can't really remember anything. Was there anything that you could dredge up from that you just think, oh, that was nifty, or has it all gone past already?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you covered the BX1, and we certainly did. Just talked about it briefly. Yes, for me, I can see from a marketing perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Two classic, two iconic machines merged together. I don't see how the filters, the lovely CS70 filters, will contribute that much to the DX engine as opposed to other filters.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting point. I mean, I think it's going to be down yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, also the whole thing about filtering FM kind of beats the point in a certain way, because the whole thing is that you get the frequency response, or the frequency curves, by modulating the FM. That's what it's all about. So I can see it working. Yeah, go on.
I suppose what I would think is, if you think about it like a complex oscillator going into analog filter, so you would program the voice, playing your standard DX7 sounds from yesteryear through it may not make sense, but creating new ones that have more complexity that the filters can respond to in a more meaningful way is probably where it's going to appeal.
Yes, but then you may ask yourself whether FM is the best way for creating complex and harmonically rich oscillators, and whether it's not wavetable or additive. So I can see how a static oscillator, static meaning no crazy envelopes, but just evolving over time, and then you subtract from there in a sort of more classic synthesis way. But yeah, I'm sure everyone has said everything that can be said.
Yeah, there's a lot. Just a couple of comments here, actually. Peter Coit says Op6 has filters that work nicely. That's a fair point. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, but and there was another, right? That's what I mean.
Yes,
FM8 has filters. So do you really need analog filters to filter those sources?
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. Okay, got you. Also, there's a question in. Oh, no, that doesn't actually look like that worked. So never mind. I thought it had, but let me see. Oh, that's a shame. I thought I.
No, I can see the question here. I can't read it.
Yeah, it's not the right
see.
question, though. It's been such a long time since I've done this. I apologise that it's probably... too live. Let's try that one. There we go. Mr. Gumby via YouTube. Did NAMM feel like the business is healthy? Which I think is a fair point, and that's something perhaps didn't address previously. Yes, it felt more so. There felt like there was more optimism. I mean, I think if you take the industry trends, which are at the moment, there's this massive correction that's gone on since the huge peaks of COVID, where lots of businesses were invested in based on this sort of massive hockey stick graph that is unsustainable. There are people who perhaps are suffering a little bit more. So it's again, it's consolidation, but it did feel more positive, and it certainly feels from our point of view that people who are still going and have the possibility to sell product and make product efficiently are still looking for ways to get the message out there from a point of view of us. I think some of the smaller people who were doing it more of a lifestyle business that are getting squeezed because of, prices of components and whatnot, they're probably not thriving as much. So, much as I prefer a wider and diverse amount of little businesses rather than just ones who buy all the other ones and give us ultimately less choice, it would be... I think it's fair to say that it felt more buoyant, if that's a question that I can answer. I don't know if that chimes with you. I mean, working in software is probably a little different to the hardware industry, isn't it, in that sense? Because hardware is a tough industry to be in at the moment, whereas software, I'm sure, is as well. I guess compute, if you're making big language models or machine learning thing, compute is an aspect that you would have to kind of consider or factor in when you're building your data set or whatever, which is a different set of issues, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the midst of a transition, and like you said, the boost that COVID gave the industry was kind of a false one, but it did trigger something, and then there was a big disappointment a year after. And now it seems there's some kind of ripples, because it's not, there was a big rocking of the boat, and now it's stabilizing, so it can go either way. The interesting thing is do you think that there was more software vendors present as opposed to yesteryears, or less, or the same?
That's a good question, actually. I think in terms of software last year was very big because the 2 Pro audio halls really kind of came to life. They were sold out. There were lots of smaller manufacturers there. I didn't get a sense that there were more of them, but there were perhaps a similar amount. Baby Audio were there. There were people there who maybe didn't have new product for the show. We had a chat with New Gen Audio about their metering. I mean, those who I would consider would be, they're sort of small in terms of, they're probably single booth, single tables size exhibitors, and they were still there. It felt more like that there was more hardware and maybe more just general. It balanced back up again, so it felt that there was a buoyance. So I wouldn't say there was more software, no, but it didn't feel like there was less, if that makes any sense. Okay, well, look, I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's take. I'll slip an ad in from our sponsors quickly, and then we'll come back and we'll start some other topics.
Introducing iZotope Cascadia, intelligent delay without distraction. Add depth and rhythm with Cascadia's spacious musical tape delay, all while carving out space with adaptive unmasking, effortlessly blending echoes, slapbacks and textures into your tracks. Intelligent delay without distraction. Head to iZotope.com today and download a free trial and learn more.
Once again, we thank iZotope for their continued sponsorship. Much appreciated. Now back to the show. Yes, indeed. So there are a few. One thing which is quite, I think this is quite a current topic, because we talked briefly on, as we become more and more involved in online and cloud and whatnot. There was the news that Sinevibes. Let me just press this. I think Peter Kern on Create Digital Music did this. Sinevibes woke up one morning and found that the YouTube channel had been basically completely shut down, which is kind of terrifying. No warnings, nothing. And it raises a whole bunch of interesting questions, which I think are pertinent, particularly to us. I mean, it feels like to us, because the thought of that is absolutely terrifying. Two things. I mean, I think possibly because it can be done because people sort of vandalize. If you get a load of people saying this is outrageous, saying that, reporting your channel effectively, then this can happen automatically, which is, again, highlights an issue that there is sort of machine-based rules for stuff that can be gamed, and I think that's what perhaps they were victims of. We don't have a total news, but just a message saying we shut you down. I mean, I guess the good news is they're now back up, and they were able to get back up without any great loss, and there was a swift way to get that message through. But I wonder that's just purely because a lot of people who are involved in Google might also be involved in music technology, so it was kind of floated nearer the top of the list because people were familiar with it. But it also throws, that we're vulnerable to kind of AI-based moderation, but also vandalism. But it also asks the question about redundancy. I mean, obviously, we post all our stuff to YouTube. We post a lot of it to Patreon as well, without ad-free, but not all our show videos. And it makes you think, does that mean we should be considering where our creative output goes? I mean, it's a wake-up call in terms of many of us, is like, well, suddenly, if my main method of distribution just shuts me down, what do I do then? And I suppose this is, I don't know whether it's a factor, but I mean, say for your YouTube channel, which you're starting to put time into, imagine you put a year's worth of stuff in, grown your users by X, and it meant that you had an audience, and suddenly they were gone. How do you combat that? I mean, and it's a conversation that's probably worth having, but I don't know if there's necessarily any answers.
Well, at this point in time, since I just started my channel, although, I have done a lot of videos for Waves with a few million hits back in the day, like between 10 and 5 years ago, I think, and they're very popular, but YouTube has changed since, and I'm waiting for the algorithm to pick up on the fact that it's the same person with a few million hits, and to make the link to my channel, which it hasn't at that time. So for me, I think I have 5 or 6 videos on there. I'm trying to do like one a week. It's very hard. Especially since I'm doing a lot of other stuff, and I'm editing it myself. I have help, but it's a thing in its own to do it well. But I think that for me, at the stage my channel is in right now, it would be actually good if that happened, and it would bring it up, the matter up to the surface to be discussed on Sonictalk and other platforms. You know what I mean?
Right.
So but this is my kind of personal perspective. I think, it's basically the wall. What Pink Floyd was talking about 40 years ago now, or however long it was. The wall is now made of GPUs, basically, because it's all kind of AI that is making all the decisions, all the policies, getting in, because a body like Google, like YouTube for that matter, which is just a part of Google. There are millions and millions of content providers on YouTube, and there are millions whom their livelihood is dependent on YouTube. That's what they do. That's their shop. That's their business.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know whether, like you say, vandalism, whether a few people wrote something, or maybe it was some bots who were kind of,
Yeah, well, we don't know. Yeah,
prompted
I suppose,
to do that, and then the other bots on the other side picked on that, and it's a kind of robot war, which we have nothing to do about. We're not even a part of it. So yeah, I hope that they will allocate more resources to respond quickly. I remember, but that was quite a few years ago, someone hacked my, or kind of cloned my Facebook page or something like that, and I wrote an email or something, and after 2 hours it was gone. So some action was taken very quickly. I'm talking about maybe 10 years ago or something like that. So, but the volumes have multiplied by such huge factors, and I don't know whether the resources have been allocated in order to address all that. What percentage of that is human, what not, and how can supervisors, even like human supervisors, can even deal with that?
Exactly. I mean, imagine that being your job. I mean, that would be a kind of okay if it was a job you had to spend a few minutes a day each day doing, like, you know, if we used to have a forum, I would moderate it occasionally. But if I had to do that 9 to 5, it would drive you insane. I mean, you can understand why. I suppose the thing that I would suggest for most people is make sure you keep a copy of, obviously, the creatives that you upload, but also keep the metadata. If there's a way for you to download or keep the metadata in a text file, you know, what you called the video, what keywords you put in it, what you put in the description, all of that, excuse me, then it means it's easier to republish it elsewhere. It's that stuff that if you go, it's like, yeah, you made the video, but there's all of the tagging, all of those things. I mean, for us, we've got, I don't know how many videos, we've got like 10,000, I don't know, lots. That would be impossible for us to repurpose easily. I mean, we've got most of it, but you know, those are the sort of things that would take an enormous amount of time.
But when the channel gets blocked, I hope neither of us will be facing this in order to be able to properly answer that question. But when a page gets blocked, does that mean you don't have access to the account or to the channel, or whether it just can't go public?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because if you have access to the back end of it, then you have the data.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tricky one. Not so great. Anyway, that's probably. I didn't mean to bring things down a little, but I think it's very, particularly at the moment. I mean, obviously we had the whole sort of the US has been through the whole TikTok thing where it was up and it was down, and it's still not clear whether it's legal to use it because of an executive order. That still doesn't mean that the law has been changed. So people are being very cautious, or not, you know. But the point is that it could result in. It's uncertainty that makes it difficult. Oh, this is a good one. I've got another question, so let's do that. I mean, that seems like a probably a good idea. So does this work? This from no, that's not it. How do I do that then? To live, that's what I want. I don't know why it's not working. That's rather annoying. See, oh, that one. That's that one, isn't it? I beg your pardon. It's been so long since I've done it. I do it. But Nick Howes, ever present commenter, question for Yoad. Have you tried the Bass Station VST? I just did a patch flip on that actually, and I quite enjoyed it. So I just wondered what you thought about it as well. Nick wonders what you thought about it.
I haven't. I love everything that they make. And I have a few products like a couple of the Oberheims. I even made presets for. I always get confused between the OBX and OBE, but I have them both. And Dave sent me licenses, and I did some presets for the OBE, I think. But you know, everything they make is so good that I bet it sounds amazing. I bet it sounds amazing. I'm sure you can probably see that I have the
You
original.
have, yeah, the original
I
Bass
have
Station,
the original, and just above it, there's the Bass Station rack. And I had an opportunity to buy another one together with the Korg Poly EX 800, which is the desktop version of the Poly 800.
Oh yeah,
which I love. I had an opportunity to buy them both for really cheap. So I have basically two Bass Station ones. But as I'm sure a lot of people here who watch me on Sonictalk know, I much prefer to use stuff in the box. Just because of the workflow. I'm not saying it sounds better, but I would love to try. I'm sure it's amazing.
I've got the Bass Station. I have a Bass Station rack, which I should have got, or I did have. Maybe I should check, or maybe it was an A Station. I can't remember now. I have to dig it out because it's under a pile of
Station
boxes.
Is the drums one, isn't it?
I can't. No, I can't remember. It was like a. I forget. I do apologise. One thing I do really like about the GeForce Bass Station is the XLFO and the XADSR is a genius idea. But also the effects they've used the same. They brought the same high pass filter effect in, and the high pass filter is really extreme. It's fantastic. It screams, which for a high pass filter is quite unusual. So it's a very transformational filter with resonance. It's just, you can get that, particularly on 303 stuff, which was kind of the point of the Bass Station back then. It was the way to access some of those sounds without having to pay $2,000 or whatever it was for a 303. But it's got that high pass filter that they've added is a really, it's almost like they added it and it wasn't working right, but it sounds so good. It's almost, it's quite uncontrollable and quite sort of non-digital in its response, and that combined with the effects, I thought it sounded really good. I mean, the synth itself, it's works in poly and all that stuff, but some of those additions are really good.
Yeah, but that's what GeForce do. They make it sound not digital, and I just love their products. The Bass Station rack has 2 modes for sending out CV, and one is volt per octave and one is hertz per octave, which is
so
what
does MS-20.
The MS-10, which I have. So that's how I trigger it. So that's my. So it's on basically all the time when I use the
So you use it as an interface. Stuff. It's interesting, isn't it? Because when they brought the Bass Station rack out, I mean, that was a absolute win, because until then you could only buy Kenton stuff, which was good, but it was quite expensive and quite fiddly to set up. And I think having
I have
that,
a couple of boxes of Kenton.
Yeah. No, I've got a few of those somewhere, but I don't use them anymore. But that was another big deal. But yeah, thanks for the question, Nick. Good one. Let's do a bit of I've got a bit of a topic here, which is kind of fun. Let's see if this is right. And I think it's going to play an instrument. Hopefully, this will be one of the instruments it plays.
Hi, I'm Nicolas Brass, musician and instrument builder from Paris, France. And this is my hacked double trumpet. This device is my instruments prototype number 1.
This is just one example of one of the nominations for it's the Guthman New Musical Instruments Award, which they run every year. It's run out of Georgia Tech, so it's I guess a US university or music technology school, and the idea is to identify sort of potential new instruments. And I wondered, I mean, I think most of these are quite experimental. I mean, I think like last year there was a 3-axis MIDI guitar, chroma plane. Oh no, the finalist this year, 3-axis MIDI guitar, chroma plane, which is quite an interesting instrument, dinosaur choir, which is ridiculous. Basically, it's a mic that amplifies the sound that you make through a 3D printed head of a dinosaur, so it makes the noise. I mean, it's not really an instrument, it's quite experimental. And there's what else? Hack double trumpet, living strings, Mopu MIDI, Muleta acoustic instrument, and something called an Udderbot. Well worth checking out. And it got me, we could talk about the just general instruments themselves, because I was looking to see whether Osmo's got anything in previous years, and I couldn't find anything in there, which was quite surprising, because I thought that would, as an instrument being adopted. I was looking back, apparently the last instrument to be adopted, for in an orchestral sense was the vibraphone, which I think was the 1920s, and before that it was the tuba. The tuba was invented in, I think it was like I forget where it is, 1875, I think it was patented. And I think it was because it was just an easier thing for sort of marching bands to use. It was more cumbersome, because there was another thing before that, I forget what it was called. So it was it was an adaptation of an existing one. But I just thought, this is such a great idea. So you basically, but it's been such a long time since any instrument has actually been added. I suppose theremin, would you say the theremin's been done with orchestra? But it's just such a great bonkers idea. This, I'm tempted to travel over for this. It's in March, I think.
Yeah, I think that it's. I watched the video that you sent. I think it's more kind of about acoustic instruments, and rather than digital ones. I think that the Continuum could well be there. Continuum.
That's true. Yeah,
it's a fresh approach to stuff. I sent you a link. I don't know if you received it, to the Cadabra.
I did. Let me see if I can throw that in there, because I couldn't find a way to. It's
an instrument that has an amazing design and has accelerators like XYZ accelerators, which it can send out as MIDI, but also to its internal engine, which is on the computer, but it has its own engine to process stuff with like very capable sequencers, and it's basically a tracker, but it's a very unique machine. And my friend Amir Vinci, who is ex-Waves, we worked for years together, and he came to visit last week with one, and it's quite a powerful.
I'm just seeing if I can play this. Let me see if this will play. I don't know if this will play or not. It looks a bit like it. I don't think. I'm trying to see if I can just play the. Oh, there it is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So does it make sound, or is it just a controller?
It's a shame you can't really see how beautiful that instrument with all the lights. It's carved of wood. It's a really kind of beautiful item. It comes with its own. So basically, its internal engine runs on a laptop nearby wirelessly. So it doesn't have any kind of engine in. Oh yeah, let's see that.
I think that's. I think that's this. This may be. Okay.
So
right.
Yeah, there you see. It's beautiful. And it's
got a hint of the Star Wars bar about it, hasn't it? But it's very futuristic.
Exactly that. So it has all these switches which can be kind of keyboard-like, or they can trigger chords. They can do all sorts of things. And then you have the XYZ accelerators to send controllers. It's a very futuristic, but it's made of kind of old wood carving. So very, very unique instrument.
Reminds me a little bit of the Zen drum, which I'm trying to find, because that was a kind of. I remember that was. I'm just trying to see if I can find any pictures of the Zen drum. Zen drum was similar. It was just a controller, but it didn't have a sound engine though. But it was quite a unique interface. Yeah. I think there's margin for. I think maybe we'll see a bit more of this, because I know that some of our, I know Nick Howes is a big exponent of this, of loading kind of ROMs and loading virtual instruments onto Raspberry Pis and having them to be able to effectively use that as your, so you could have a 5800 emulator or whatever it may be and run a Access virus or whatever it may be. And so I suppose there may be a margin for doing that. Maybe we'll see a bit more of that, because I mean, we're probably getting to the point now where you can probably ask your favorite AI to write you some code that makes a sound like X or Y. I mean, whether it'll be efficient and optimized is another matter, but it might be a thing. That would be kind of interesting.
You can ask another AI to optimize it. But do you remember a few years ago in NAMM or Music Messe, there was this tiny device that was receiving power from the MIDI DIN cable. So it was like a synth in a box like that you don't have to connect to anything, just a MIDI cable and a MIDI plug for audio. And I think it was FM or something. It was very, really tiny.
Yes, I do remember that.
But what they also mentioned on the video, which I think is very cool, is the voice box. And that takes me back, the tube with the speaker driver inside, and then you do the formant basically with your mouth. And I remember when I was maybe 11 or 12, I built one out of a lamp. I took the lamp apart, and I took a speaker out of old radio or something like that, and put an air condition condenser tube.
All right, yeah.
And built my own voice box. I wish I had a picture of that, but I do have some old recordings with that. It sounded pretty good. And then I got the Electro Harmonix, which is a dedicated one, which I still have.
Is that Golden
today.
Thread? Is that the one?
It's called the mouth box or mouth tube or something like that.
Okay.
It's really heavy duty because it has like a horn speaker driver.
Yeah.
Inside, it's 8 ohm.
Got to watch make sure your fillings are all properly glued in, haven't you? When you
absolutely,
use it?
Because when you play with it for a while, the air pressure in your mouth is quite substantial. So, so it's kind of half mechanical. And I remember I used to talking about the Poly 800. I used to connect that to the voice box because usually people use it with guitar. But I used to connect it to a synth, and it sounds so cool with the.
Well, there are loads on. There's Roger Troutman, and there was the California Love, which was was that a Snoop track? I can't remember. I can't remember the name of the guy. They always used the DX7, wasn't it? No, DX100. I think was always a classic source for that. I don't know what sound they did.
I mean, the Bon Jovi track is the most famous one, I think.
Yeah.
The one when I cringe when I hear the key change towards the end, it was clearly too high for him, and he's just suffering to do it. But
yeah, gosh. Well, there is a story there, isn't there? I mean, I was listening to this the other day. They were playing when we were at NAMM. They had a tent out, which was had a sort of DJs in it, and they were playing various things. And they played Basement Jaxx Red Alert, which is an absolute classic sort of bouncy house track. But if you listen to the vocal on that, I don't know if that woman who did the vocal could ever have sung again after she absolutely shredded her voice in that. I mean, it's an astonishing performance, and I wonder. I do hope she gave it rather than had it extracted from her, because she absolutely ruined. You can hear the way that she sang, and it was. She suffered for it. It made me feel a bit uncomfortable with that. It just felt like but yeah, listen to that vocal. It's an amazing vocal, but it's also quite scary if you think about what her voice must have gone through to do that. That's a total aside. There's nothing really anything. Okay, right. I'm just going to let's see. Let's have a look. What should we do? What should we look at next? What do you think? There's a few, I don't think we're going to cover everything, but I wonder, what do you think about the Native Instruments and MPC collab? Because people got a bit uppity about that. Yeah. It's very interesting. All right, let's press this. And this is a video from...
Welcome to John Makes Beats, where John Makes Beats. I'm your host, Mike, Patrick, Carl, Nathan Iverson, and today we're going to be making a beat on the MPC X Special Edition. But more importantly, we're going to be making a beat with the instruments and expansions that Native Instruments has put on offer inside the MPC standalone ecosystem. And since I'm not going...
Okay, right. So just if you didn't catch the news, I did post something. We did an interview with people at Native Instruments. I didn't get a chance to talk to anybody at Akai. But essentially, what's happened is Akai and Native Instruments have sort of made a collab where sounds from, play series, which are very specific library sets, are available on the MPC engine. So you can play them in the standalone. Normally the stuff is made by Air. And this is, it's on the face of it seems like a jolly marvellous thing. But there's a lot of machine owners and Machina Plus owners who are kind of gnashing their teeth and really sort of upset that the effort has gone into this rather than maybe supporting and incrementing what the Machina offers, particularly Machina Plus, which is a standalone, which kind of doesn't seem to have had much love since it was first released, at least not recently. So it's kind of thrown a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons. I mean, there are several things. I must admit, I was looking back, and the Machina Plus is a lovely looking piece of hardware. I've never used Machina or really MPC. They're not my thing, but I would probably gravitate towards more of a Machina. But now, knowing that there's what I know now, I wonder, so I suppose there are several questions here. I mean, first of all, what's going on? But the second question is, does that mean the MPC won? Or does it mean that, because you use Machina, do you use hardware Machina or do you use just in software?
I use the Machina. I used to use it. I don't really use it very often these days. And if I do, I use the software for it, which I really love. I love the programming drums on it. It's really, really cool. For some reason, I mean, it looks like anything that you have in Logic or any modern step sequencer, but there's something about it which I like. When I got it, I even made a whole environment where I had 16 stereo outputs. I basically made an Ableton Live sort of workflow with it, where I had it and I had the pads triggering different scenes, and I had 16 stereo outs routed to 16 audio tracks in Logic. So I could basically, so that was my session, my launch view, and then I recorded it to kind of a session view, if you like. So that was very cool. I think that regarding this collaboration between Akai and Native Instruments, and people who own Machina are getting disappointed about, I don't think it's the same thing, because this is taking content which already exists and making it available in a different format. Which means that you just hire or give the task to some professionals who know how to do that, and it's a certain effort which can bring you some sales of content. Expanding or modernizing the Machina hardware is a whole different story, because it's a lot of design. You would probably want to use different chips, different memory, different architecture possibly, and I'm not sure they're not working on something like that anyway, but this is a much, much, much bigger effort, much more risky. You're investing in hardware. It's a whole different thing. So, and maybe you can look at it in a way that the revenue from the new market, which is the MPC, can finance the development of the hardware of Machina, and also make it more available and more sort of.
I think. I mean, because if you look at the front page of Native Instruments, I mean, obviously Soundwide own Native Instruments. I mean, full disclosure, they are a sponsor of this podcast, as are iZotope. They're owned under Soundwide. They rebranded it to Native Instruments, so I guess it's Native Instruments now. They do make hardware, but most of the products that they're pushing is software. So that's where the focus has gone. I mean, iZotope is also software. There's a couple of other products I forget who they're involved in as well. But so it's mostly based on that. So I think you're right. Plug-in Alliance. I mean, pivoting to hardware again is going to require probably hiring some people and doing that, because I mean, I guess if you're not pushing current hardware and developing hardware or selling hardware regularly, then you might not have those people on board full time. So I suppose that's going to be interesting, and I think it's a fair comment. I mean, the thing is the CPUs and whatnot in the Machina Plus would have been of the time. Now obviously I think the newest MPCs are probably going to have much more modern CPUs and modern RAM, a bit more. They're going to be more capable, presumably, than the older Machina stuff. I guess when it comes down to a controller, though, I mean, you can update the actual Machina software. I don't know what the compatibility is. I can't follow it. There are quite a lot of flavors of Machina which are a little confusing. So I guess at the very least there's likely to be some sort of rationalization, and that is inevitably going to lead to somebody disappointed who maybe is waiting for an update. But this is all complete speculation. But it makes sense what you say. It's a way of generating some revenue that they can then turn to whatever needs to be done.
I think that I think that the market for Machina expansions is still alive and kicking. So
right.
Again, it's a lot easier to produce content and to sell it, because you don't pay every unit you sell doesn't cost you anything, unlike hardware. So with hardware, every unit you sell, you have to pay for the manufacturing. Yeah, well, there's a bit of cost. For the shipment, for the storage, and all that. And when you produce a software product, or for that matter, a content library, then each copy that just brings you money after the initial investment. So it makes more sense. That's not quite true. I mean, yes, to a degree, but there is also tech support and that side of things which has to be funded. The more things you sell, the more tech support you have to allocate, because you've got a bigger customer base. So it's a different cost base and probably more predictable. But yeah, it's not no cost, but it's a different sort of set of costs for sure. And it doesn't cost you any parts, but it will cost you a percentage of your support team's time, which probably is easy to factor in. You can say the same about hardware. The more units you sell, the more tech support you need, and the more sort of recalls and all that. So it's much easier to sell something which is a download rather than something physical. Yeah, agreed. I mean, I don't know about I haven't really seen anything recently. I think the last thing I saw with a touchscreen that I thought, oh, that's really responsive, was actually the Chronos 3 at NAMM, and that's much snapped, because when we first saw those, it just looked like it was a nightmare of sluggish response. And at the initial, maybe the first MPC standalone, wasn't that bad, but I guess those things are things that are likely to have improved as well over time. Having a touchscreen based instrument, the response time, the fact that it's much more responsive is going to be more compelling as a product for sure. I should probably just take a short break, and we'll be back after this message from our friends.
I know right away when it's good for me, because it makes me write something.
Complete 15, a do-it-all production bundle for endless sonic inspiration. I did not know I could do that.
You have your low sounds, you have your mid sounds, you have your high sounds.
Create any sound imaginable.
All together, sounds nice and big.
Whatever sound your music needs, make it with Complete 15. Excellent. Well, thanks to Native Instruments for supporting the podcast, even though we've just spent a little bit of time talking about their inner workings. I'm sure they will appreciate it nonetheless. Okay, well, let's see what have we got something else here. This was kind of interesting. This showed me a lot of promise. So maybe I'll press this one and see what. So Sinevibes 2, which is a Klevgrand product, lovely interface. I was really kind of like, oh, this looks interesting. The idea is you sort of morph between multiple presets that are based in a synth engine. And I thought, oh, great. And it was free. And I thought, fantastic, I'll download that. I did download it. It was a little bit complicated to download because you have to sort of buy it, but it doesn't cost anything. So it's a bit confusing. And then I downloaded it. It's a beautiful looking thing. Couldn't figure out a way to manipulate the XY axis of that with MIDI controllers, which was, again, a little bit disappointing. So you have to mouse around. And unfortunately, I didn't find the sounds terribly inspiring, but I love the idea of the UI. And I know, obviously, UI is where a lot of it comes down to for you. And so I don't know what you thought about the UI. I thought it was lovely. And I was a bit disappointed with what it actually sounded like in the end, but it is free, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting way of browsing presets, really, because we're all used to browsing presets incrementally, whether it's random or just hitting the plus sign. But it's one preset at a time, and why not having more than one at a time, and then you can morph between them. I suspect that there is a kind of caching, if you like, system behind this under the hood, because you can't play. If you imagine a 120 preset bank, and if you wanted to morph between all the presets or to have access to all the presets, it would mean that you would have to have 128 engines playing, which is live, obviously right, not possible. So I suspect there's like 4 or maybe 8 playing at any given moment, and that's why you have this. It seems random, but it's actually serial, because that tree can only move in a certain direction. So yes, it's almost like splines, caching of instruments. So it's like voice stealing, but it's actually preset stealing, if you like. So, but again, it's a really nice way of doing it. So I suspect that once something goes off screen, then it offloads, and then something else or a few ones getting, queued, and then they load. So it takes quite a few voices to be online and active,
right? Which
is not a problem with today's machines, but yeah, still very, very interesting way of doing things. Usually with interfaces like that, which is kind of stems from the Prophet VS, where you had 4
vectors,
wavetables, and you could morph between them. So this is morphing between the entire preset. So usually you would have one preset, and you could one multi or whatever, and you could load a few presets and then morph between them, like you could do with Omnisphere and things like that. But this actually morphs between entire presets while playing maybe 4 at a time, I presume, or something like that. After all, it's an XY. You don't have a Z kind of element to it. You can't push it in the background. So that's essentially an XY. So it's 4 presets at any given moment.
Okay. I mean, I suppose the other thing it could do is like transition. A preset is 4 presets, or that it loads all of them. Like there is a journey between ones in the same way that an Osmo's voice has a way of. But that
didn't sound like that to me. It sounds to me like it's a sample-based instrument, and the morphing is just a mixer. So it's not like the Matrix,
right?
Where you can actually morph between presets. I don't think that company. I love that company, by the way. I don't know.
Yeah, they make some great stuff. Klevgrand. Yeah, they make some great stuff.
Really good stuff. I don't think they have quite a level of synth engine to pull something like that off. So I think it's a sample-based instrument. That's what it sounds to me like as well. And it's just a mixer that's doing the morphing. But still,
maybe so.
Really, really great concept.
Also, a shout out for Phase Plant, which is another that has an interesting kind of tree-based system.
Similar way.
And Pete Brown, hello Pete. Pete from Microsoft said needs a D-beam, which is probably could benefit from a D-beam, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, it's free, so fill your boots, available for Mac and PC, and do check out the other Klevgrand stuff, because they've got some really good products, some great percussion stuff, really nice. I remember when we first were doing the Sonictalk, I think there was a compressor of some kind that was just sounded fantastic. It was really kind of visceral. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, that one's well worth checking out as well. Just a quickie. Don't forget, Synth East is not this weekend, but next weekend. If you've got tickets, I think they're pretty much sold out. There may be a few things, so syntheast.com, do check that out. That's Robin Vincent's event in Norwich. I would love to go. Unfortunately, I can't make it to that one. Paulie's going to be there, and I've sent them a camera holder and a couple of mics, so they might do a sort of little documentary of how it is, and I'd be very keen to see that, but hopefully I'll be able to make it next time. I just can't do it this time, but do check that out. Let's think, is there anything else we could put on? We could put maybe have a quick look at the Xpander Clone. This is kind of very much vaporware, I suppose. There's not really anything we can say about it other than this is on Synth Anatomy. There's Acme, as a sort of one-man synth repair shop, is working on a Xpander Clone, which we haven't seen yet. Actually, nobody's really done that yet. So that would be, according to him, the first prototype is ready, though optimizations are still needed everywhere. For example, to shrink the PCB, power supply more, going to aim for 50 initial units, no price or ETA. I do know a lot of people really hanker after the Xpander. In fact, I'm sure I saw a video recently where somebody said that, they've replaced the power supply and it's sort of turned into a completely different machine because they were a bit legendarily kind of shonky. I don't know. Have you got any Oberheim expanders in your life, Yoad?
No, I just have the Matrix 6. I think that the Matrix and I think that the architecture is quite similar, but the Xpander has more basically of everything. I'm not sure whether the oscillators and filters are the same or similar. I've never played on one. What I don't understand is how you get away with licensing something like that. Whether it's, I understand when Behringer do stuff like that, they do whatever they do, the litigation and whatever is needed to be done to make it legal. But I'm not sure how
I see. Yeah.
How you go about something like that. I saw a comment on this post of someone saying, I'm sure that this is going to be very pricey and I will just wait for Behringer to come out with that, which kind of makes sense, unless you're into like boutique stuff, because this is going to be more unique, one of a kind or 50 of a kind thing. Is it going to sound different than when Behringer do it, as mass production line?
Well, I don't know. I suppose the thing is they because they own a chip manufacturing plant. I forget the name of the company, but they make 3340 clones and that kind of stuff. Wagyu says the chips in the Xpander / Matrix 12 are unobtainable if they go, according to Kent, who is, as we know, a reputable synth repair person. So, I mean, something like that would make sense to mass production, and I guess there's no reason why it's probably not on the list. But I guess if you've got every single synth ever made, the Matrix, we're starting to kind of, is that what happened when we did software versions of things? Is people sort of ran out of things to kind of make, and there's been a new tranche recently of slightly more unusual and odd ones. I mean, Cherry Audio are particularly good at that. So, I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? I would like to see it. I've never played on a Matrix 12 or a Matrix Xpander, but I did hear that they were notoriously difficult to maintain. Lots of stuff went wrong with them. If I remember correctly, it was Marcus. That was under Marcus Ryle. I mean, I'm not saying he's responsible for that, but I think when he was first starting out, he worked at Oberheim during the time when that stuff was being made, from what I recall. And I think it was just at the sort of tail end. So maybe they just couldn't make it a highly expensive, durable thing. I mean, it was expensive. I don't know how much the original was, and I imagine this will be expensive, but it looks like it could be fun. Okay, well, I think I'm going to start to wrap things up now. What are you alt-tabbing into an Atmos mix, or have you got something exciting on the go you can or can't talk about? I'm
actually working on Audio Modern Soundbox expansion, which is the new sampler in town, and it's a very interesting piece of software. I'm enjoying, making sounds for it. So,
that's the last video I saw, which is it's like a VST plugin host that allows you to multiple process the output of.
No, it's a sampler. It's a sampler like you can say Omnisphere or something like that.
Right.
But you can it's not a rompler. You can edit and you can do your own samples, and they sell expansions on the website, and I was commissioned to make a few expansions and enjoying it. It's a very, very, very good sounding engine, I have to say.
Yeah.
Interesting effects and stuff. Reverbs by iZotope are embedded in it, so interesting.
Nice. Okay. I don't know if I mentioned, but we're also running a Cable Guys competition. I think I did maybe at the top. Do check that out. That's available now. Some good prizes there. So there should be links all over the site and stuff. It sounds like Yoad's getting a delivery.
That's okay. Sorry, Reverb by Synaptic.
Synaptic. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Not iZotope, right? Gotcha. Well, that sounds good. Well, I hope you have a great week and look forward to seeing you again. And thank you so much for being up for just a one-up. I know sometimes
just the two of us.
Just the two of us. Yeah, we made it in the end. Isn't there a lyric there? Just the two of us.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish I could think of another line. I'll have to write it down somewhere. Anyway, that's it for this week, folks. Thanks everybody in the chat room. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Take care now. Bye-bye.